All right, well, 3-2 last night. I know we like to sweep the board. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But as you see, we're going to get back to some offense here. We're going to get back to some player props here. We're going to try and take advantage of everything that's offered to us, including hopefully you are taking advantage of what's below me. You see this link here and this banner that reads. So you want to take advantage of all that. $5 into $150. I'll tell you about that. Another big night on the Discord. Let's start the clock. Already? Have you hit the thumbs up? Oh, hold on. Have they hit the thumbs up button and subscribed yet? Because I ain't starting shit unless we know that for sure. Okay. Looks like people are piling in here. Thumbs up. We appreciate that. Subscribe. We appreciate that. All right. Let us begin. We're going to talk points here. All right. We're going to start out with this Raptors Magic game. Yeah, there's some value here. Don't get me wrong. We got killed on Franz last time out. OG, by the way, some volume action got us there. And at even money, who are we to say no to that prop again? So last time that we did this was one that hit, of course, but it took forever. I mean, the guy was like 1 for $1 million from 3, and it just was a painful, slow, painful death. We thought losing that prop, and then bang, here he comes, and he hits it. We like him to clear this hurdle here. And again, I think you're getting some value, clearly. The vig aside on player props, that's just what you're betting into here. But you're getting this still at even money for somebody that, regardless of game flow, so long as they're not either blowing out Orlando or getting blown out by Orlando. The prior, of course, a little more reasonable. Well, I still think that we can go OG. All right, so that's our first prop, over 19.5. Let's move to this Hawks and Nets game, because, again, I think when you're looking at a couple of guys, and you only have a couple of here, the big one's going to be either Durant or Irving, right? And you look at Durant, you've seen a little bit, not regression or anything like that, but a little bit of a step back or so. I think the other area is actually Nick Claxton matching up. Looking at whatever's going on interior with Capella, this is still a pretty good matchup here for what could be, and this is going to be spurts, right? But early spurts, you get Nick Claxton up to 6, maybe 7 points, right? Free throw here or there. You get him up there in that first half, really first quarter, working against the Hawks, trying to get somebody into foul trouble. That would be my strategy, at least. And we've seen he can take advantage of it. You've got 2 dynamic scorers on the outside. Not that Claxton is going to be part of the focus, but clearly.
All I want to do is get a shower. Drowning in sweat. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Friday, December 9th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by PrizePicks. 10-game slate today. That's a pretty nice Friday. I can't really ask for too much more. 3 games locking at 7, 3 more at 7:30. It should be a good one. So reward us. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, anything good in the NHL streets? I know NBA wasn't.
No, football was the worst. NHL and NBA
football.
both sucked also. Just not a good night.
Totally forgot that football existed.
Uh,
No Baker?
Yeah, no Baker. I was going to say, I guess you didn't see the end of that game.
I mean, I didn't see the beginning of the game or any part of it, other than I know that Baker played.
So you don't even know like how it ended?
No, I had no clue.
Oh, so Baker, had been with the team for 2 days, doesn't know the playbook or anything. Gets the ball on his own 2-yard line with 1:45 minutes to go, drives 98 yards and wins the game.
I mean, that's that's great. That's fantastic.
I was happy watching it.
That's fantastic.
It was helped out by a very stupid penalty. And they had no timeouts for this 98-yard drive.
Okay.
He got sacked, and that probably should have kind of wrapped things up. But one of the defenders on the Raiders decided to just smack the ball out of his hand like 5 seconds after the play and get a 15-yard penalty.
Okay.
But yeah,
hey, look, that's not his problem,
No, and I mean he had some great throws too. Like it was pretty fun to watch.
That's wild. Like I had no clue whatsoever that any of that happened, but that's fun.
Yeah.
But he didn't start. Am I right there?
Wolford started and played the first drive, and then Mayfield came in.
How owned was he?
I don't know. I know Wolford was 10%. I don't even know how much of him I had, but I know that's the quarterback I played.
You didn't. So you didn't even play Baker?
No.
Which obviously I don't think is like a crazy statement if you don't think he's starting.
Yeah, no, I didn't.
That is fascinating. No, I had no idea. I watched a bit of the NBA, and then once Paul George started to play well, and I get the message from you like, "Yo, we're dead." It's just like I'm out of here. I don't need this shit anymore.
Yeah, the win probability graph for the Raiders is amazing. It's just like 100% and then just drops. Yeah.
That's fun. I'll have to look into that or like catch up on Twitter. I saw nothing. I woke up, did the process show, had to scramble, get out of here, then come back and scramble again. But I'll check it out. Anyway, 10 games. I like 10 gamers. That's like the upper bound for me. That's what I would consider to be the perfect big slate. I don't know why, just round numbers, I guess. But you ready to break this one down? Because I don't even want to talk about yesterday's NBA slate.
Yeah, I'm good.
All righty. Let's do it then. First game up, the New York Knicks, 4-point favorites in Charlotte, 225 total. For the Knicks, it's kind of interesting, I guess. We don't really see this all that often, but Obi Toppin's going to be out for, 2-3 weeks, something along those lines. You get so used to projecting the Knicks, and particularly the power forward minutes of Randall gets X, Obi Toppin gets 48 minus X, and you don't even bat an eye at it. So now we're freeing up, random 14 minutes here, which probably, in my eyes, just go to Cam Reddish and none of it matters. But the thing is, Charlotte is a dream matchup, and the prices on some of these Knicks guys on DraftKings are all low. We've got 20% ownership going to Randall, Brunson, Quickly, Barrett, Mitchell Robinson's knocking on the door. Listen to the disparity in some of these prices. Randall is $300 cheaper on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. Jalen Brunson is $1,200 cheaper on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. Quentin Grimes is $600 cheaper. RJ Barrett is $500 cheaper. Mitchell Robinson is $800 cheaper. Emmanuel Quickly is $800 cheaper. This entire team is like $700-ish cheaper on DK than FanDuel, which is just fun to see. Not as interesting on FanDuel as they are on DK, but gotta like the Knicks today.
Yeah, obviously look great on DraftKings. I agree with you that Reddish probably takes those Toppin minutes. I don't know that it's a guarantee. He didn't play in the second half of that last game, even with Toppin out. You got more Miles McBride. You also could just get Julius Randle back to playing like 38 minutes like he used to. Not going to project that, but certainly on the table as far as things that could happen. I agree with you from a projection standpoint. It probably just becomes Cam Reddish. But yeah, Julius Randle's going to look really good at 7,900. Brunson clearly underpriced at 68. He was 72 last slate, and we were talking about how he was underpriced and probably getting a little bit too much ownership, but then the salary goes down even more. So he looks really good. RJ Barrett at 5,900. If you hate money, he's going to project well and then miss every shot like usual. Quickly at 4,100 probably ends up not being great by the time we get to lock, but right now he's projected for a bunch of ownership just because that is too cheap of a price tag for what's probably going to be like 22 to 24 minutes. Robinson at 5K looks good. He's been playing more minutes recently. Last game, we got 26 minutes. Could have been a bit more. I don't know if he was going to close that game or not. They did sub him out a little bit before the starters, but also it was a non-competitive game down the stretch. But he's been averaging like 28 to 30 minutes over his last 10. So this whole team just looks really good.
Yeah, the matchup's fantastic. Charlotte's defense is ass. These prices work. Pieces all fit together. I mentioned on the process show this morning, I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks just went to a 9-man rotation and all of those 14 Toppin minutes just get redistributed pretty easily through everybody else. I don't think it'll matter all that much, and it's probably only Randall that really gets any effect from it anyway. Do you have any interest in like a Miles McBride today, or is that just like too far off the beaten path for 10 minutes or for a 10-game slate?
I think it's probably too far gone for a 10-game slate. Like there's just going to be other stuff that opens up. Mm-hmm. The bull case for him, I guess, would be that if they did run a rotation like they did in the second half where he just picks up a bunch more minutes. But yeah, It's not like it would be a little bit different, and it would still be a really thin play, but it would be a little bit different if he was like a good point per minute guy.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, maybe he'll get a few more minutes. But it's still one of those spots where you're like, oh well, maybe I will get really lucky with how the rotation goes, and then maybe I also will get really lucky and he doesn't play like he's Miles McBride.
Yep. I think we're on the same page there. But really, any starter plus quickly, and you can feel pretty good about it. On the FanDuel side, I don't have nearly as much interest. Like Randall at 8,200 with the power forward center is fine. He's the guy getting 20% ownership. I'm not super fond of it, but obviously there's some upside there. But as we look at everybody else, I don't need these guys at the prices that they're pulling on FanDuel. They're more appropriately priced than anything else.
Agreed.
I have nothing else for the Knicks other than just sort of get a bunch of it. It's rare that you like the Knicks.
Yeah, but across the board, especially on DraftKings today, they look great.
Yeah,
it does suck. It's the first game because you're going to end up with a lot of stuff locked in.
Yep, and it's equally as interesting on the opposite side here for Charlotte. I mean, it's no Gordon Hayward, it's no LaMelo Ball, it's no Dennis Smith. We know what this rotation is. They don't really deviate at all. Some of these guys are playing massive minutes, like Rozier and Oubre. We've got everybody in the teens at a minimum on Charlotte on the DraftKings side. Rozier, Washington, McDaniels, Plumlee, all like 15 to 18% owned. Oubre at 6,900, shooting guard, small forward, playing like 37 minutes a night, is at 28. I think he is the best option from the Hornets for today, but it's not just the Knicks. This whole game is like the ultimate game stack.
Yeah, so I might just stack this game 150 times and go enjoy my Friday night.
It's not the worst idea in the world.
Yeah.
Until it's 87, 84 because they all miss. They all shoot like RJ Barrett.
I'm pretty confident if I were to do that, stacking the game would not be the worst decision I make from that point to the end of the night. So,
well, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, no, the team looks really good. Oubre playing huge minutes. So is Terry Rozier. Rozier 8K. Oubre only 6,900 without LaMelo or Hayward on the floor. 1.02 DraftKings points per minute with a 27.5% usage rate for Oubre this year. Rozier at 1.03 with just shy of a 29% usage rate. More peripherals for Rozier because of the assists. So both of those guys look really good. PJ Washington at 5,800, Plumlee at 5,700. Washington about a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. Should give you 33, 34 minutes. Plumlee should play around 30 at a fantasy point per minute. Jalen McDaniels, if you get there as like a last piece in type guy, fits pretty nicely. He isn't as good a point per minute guy as the other four, but he's still at 0.85 DraftKings points per minute without Hayward and LaMelo. It's not like you're talking about one of these like 0.7, fifth starter type guys. He's still solid. So all five of the starters look good. And then beyond that, I have absolutely nothing.
I agree with you there. Yeah, last three games for McDaniels, 33 minutes, 34 minutes, 36 minutes. Like, if you're going to be playing 30, call it 33, 34. I gave him 30 minutes just in my first run of projections because I don't want him to show up in everything that I do. But
I usually
these guys are just playing massive minutes.
Yeah, I usually go 32, but if you wanted to go higher, I think you could.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically every single starter on both sides of this game is like a good to great play on DraftKings today.
Yeah. Also, one, I'll just mention it. It doesn't matter for the slate, but in case anybody was thinking about it or going to ask, if you wanted to make the Nick Richards play, it's even riskier than usual now. He didn't play in the second half last game. You got JT Thor in the rotation instead. So I don't know what that rotation is going to look like today, but I wouldn't have recommended Richards anyway. But if you were just looking at it and for some reason wanted to go Richards, it's even riskier than normal.
Speaking of backup center plays, we nailed the DeAndre Jordan one last night.
Did he play?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hopefully, I mean, it wouldn't have mattered for me. I'll say hopefully he didn't do too well because I don't think I actually played him.
I mean, I think Jokic, like he wasn't a relevant option as far as I can remember, but like it was him and not Zikaji.
Yeah, that makes me feel better about just erasing like everything and replacing it with DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, I had the DeAndre Jordan minutes in as well. I don't like feel great about it, but it was nice to like walk through that and then see it happen because I feel like anytime we do that kind of stuff, we get opposite of rewarded.
Right. I was gonna say I was pretty sure what was gonna happen was Jokic 3 fouls in 6 minutes. Zeke Naji plays 29 minutes and wins somebody a tournament.
Yeah, you and me both. Just like a general question for this game, like, do you approach this differently because it's the first, it locks at 7:00 and there are legitimately like 11 good plays here. Like, do you Will it change anything that you're doing, or should it if you're playing maybe limited lineups?
It's not going to change anything I'm doing. I don't like it. I think on shows like, I don't know, a long time ago, so I could be wrong. I think Alex had sort of mentioned, or somebody had sort of mentioned, like possibly slightly discounting the early games. I don't know. I don't do it. Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a case to say that like you reduce this by 1% to increase your flexibility by 1% later or something along those lines. But that's going to be it's going to be marginal. It makes sense in theory, but that's like an advanced DFS course type thing. You're not just doing that if you're playing like a 3 max.
Right. And if you're doing that, you better be good at late swapping too, because otherwise you're just taking like, you're just reducing the good plays at the beginning so that you can screw up what you're doing later.
Exactly.
Yeah, like as far as early games go in general, typically I don't do anything different with it. Once in a while, if we get that 7 o'clock game and we're waiting on like a bunch of 7:30 or 8 o'clock news or whatever, and it's a game where I don't like any plays, or maybe I like one play, I'll just cross it out and hope that, that one play I like doesn't go nuts. But in a spot like this where I like a ton of plays from the game, like I don't want to just not play the game. It's just going to it's just annoying that it's a 7.
Yeah, like on the Charlotte side, I'm still getting, I mean, these guys are just as owned on FanDuel as they are on DraftKings. It's 20% across the board, 20 to Oubre, 25 to Rozier, 25 to Washington, 20 to McDaniels, 24 to Plumlee, and I'm getting to all of them. So I can't get away from this. It's too good.
Yep.
Like I said, the Knicks Hornets game, too good. And unfortunately, I'm going to have a lot of exposure, and I can't watch it if I want to because I'm blacked out to this stupid shit.
The other thing that sucks about it being at 7 is it's probably just going to be higher owned than it otherwise would be.
Also true, which is interesting to pay attention to for like future days, if that's the case, because then you really can think about a discount of it. Anything else here for Knicks Hornets?
Nope. Play everybody.
Yep. Your Washington Wizards are 5-point underdogs in Indiana, 232 total. A little hard to talk about it, but I think that we can make some assumptions. Bradley Beal out, Rui out, DeLon Wright out. There's a Q tag on Will Barton and a Q tag on Porzingis. Porzingis rolled his ankle in their game on Wednesday. You hit me immediately with a Manu run bad. He ended up coming back in and playing 35 minutes, so that made me feel good. But generally, you see problems with like rolled ankles after that particular day. So I don't have a great feel, but I did put him in since he finished that game and like literally played a lot more minutes after that on the ankle. So I'm treating Washington like they're at full strength minus that Beal piece. And then there's one guy that we really need to talk about, but the ownership is there. Let's start with Deni Avdija before we do anything else. 4,800 on DraftKings, small forward, power forward eligible, 5,500 on FanDuel. He's pulling 30-something% ownership. Deni played 39 minutes on Wednesday. The last time that Bradley Beal was out was November 23rd. Deni Avdija played 40.5 minutes that day. I went to 32 for him. I still think he looks pretty good. I think you can conceivably project him for more if you want to, although it does become a little scary. How do you want to project Deni Avdija today?
Yeah, I think it's pretty crazy. And really, if you look, so overall this year, in the games that he's played without Beal, he's averaged about 32 minutes per game. But if you go game by game and look at those games, 26 minutes in the first one, 18, 32, 34, 34, 41, 39. So you kind of see where the team realized they hate Will Barton and like Deni Avdija as time went on.
Also, no Rui too now.
What'd you say?
No Rui as well. Another person that was pulling minutes at like a comparable-ish position.
Right. And no DeLon Wright.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I'll probably go 34 on Avdija. You could make the case to go higher than that, I think.
Yeah.
Like I think he plays a lot of minutes. And he also hasn't been bad is the other weird part of this. 0.9 DraftKings points per minute in the 7 games without Beal. He's weird. Like you look at 4,800 for Avdija, and my immediate thought is just like, I'm good. And then you see 36% ownership, and it's like, what the hell is everybody else doing? But if the guy's going to play 36 minutes and average fantasy point per minute, he's a really good play.
He is. He really is. Like I wanted to lead with him because it's pretty easy to talk about Kyle Kuzma or Kristaps Porzingis. I think they both look good. The Q tag is obviously keeping the Porzingis ownership down, but I like him if he is in. I like Kuzma quite a bit as well. Kuzma 7,500 on FanDuel. in a like this is a really great matchup against Indiana too. This is ultra fast paced. Indiana is number 1 in my pace metric, which is nice to see. Washington is middle of the pack, so pace up spot for the Wizards. I'm happy to get to Kuzma or Porzingis. I don't have anything really to say about those guys, but Denny is like the swing piece.
Yeah, looks really good, which is not great, but yeah, I don't know. I definitely just have a bias against Denny Avdia, but all the numbers back up this being a really good play. I personally hate it, but
I'm a big Denny Avdia guy, so I'm excited for the next
you?
couple of years. Yeah, I wanted the Warriors to take him.
So I want him to succeed, obviously. I got down on him early just because like I was told I didn't know anything about him during the draft, and I was told that I would be really happy with the pick. And then early on, I was very not happy with the pick.
He's just one of those guys, similar to like a in that Franz Wagner mold, where I really like guys that just like fit on good teams and do a bunch of different things. And like those are like the kind of guys that I'm generally just interested in, guys that can just play for winning teams. So, it's not going to look great for the Wizards at the beginning because they're the Wizards.
Right. And also like through a DFS lens, that is one thing to sort of like about Avdia here is he's not scoring dependent. He's not likely to light it up as a scorer, but overall this season, he averages 0.83 DraftKings points per minute on like 15% usage. Without Beal on the floor, he's at 0.89 on 16% usage, but he has a 17.5% assist percentage. So you see him take on some of that playmaking role that Beal vacates. He has an 11% rebounding percentage. He just does everything well. 2.2 steals per 100, 1 block per 100 possessions. It's just somebody that's going to play a lot of minutes, does everything relatively well on the floor, and can get there in a variety of ways.
What about Monty Morris? 22% owned on DraftKings, 27 on FanDuel, played 37 minutes this past Wednesday. We have I have a little bit of interest there if those minutes are going to be up. I gave him 32. I think that's pretty reasonable. I don't know if I want to go all the way to like 30%. I like Denny more, but Morris definitely in a different realm than he was when Beal was in.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what to do with those minutes. Jordan Goodwin only played 12 and a half minutes, and we've seen Goodwin play a sizable role for this team with DeLon Wright out. In the previous games where Beal was out, Morris played 33, 32, 19, 29, 27, and then you got this 37. Overall this year, he's averaged 30 minutes per game. I'll probably go to like 32 on him. I still think that there's a good chance that Goodwin just plays more than he did last game.
Is there anybody else you want to get to from Washington? Gafford's at 12% ownership at 3,600. That doesn't feel like what we need to do today on a 10-gamer, but do you want to do anything else here? Kispert, I guess if Will Barton is out, does that cause you to get to anything else?
So we did get 4 minutes of Gafford and Porzingis alongside each other again, which is interesting. If you're going to get Turner and, I mean, we don't know who we're getting from Indiana, but if you're going to get Turner and Jalen Smith alongside each other, I think you certainly could get those Gafford Porzingis minutes again. 10-game slate, center only for Gafford. I don't want to get there. I think 12% ownership's a little aggressive, but I do get it. Like I am going to project it, probably like 34 minutes Porzingis, 18 Gafford, something like that. Obviously, if Porzingis is out, then play as much Gafford as you can get to.
Yep. Yeah, he's just going to be very clearly incredible. Daniel Gafford, 5,300 on FanDuel today. So
wow.
Might not even be a good play if Porzingis is out. I mean, he still is, but like they didn't have any trouble bumping that price tag up.
Does he have power forward?
No. He's just a $5,300 backup today for some strange reason. Fun stuff. But for the third straight team, like whole lot of ownership coming in at these 7:00 games.
Yeah. And I didn't say anything specifically about Kuzma, but 8,100, 1.11 DraftKings points per minute without Beal this year, 16.5% assist percentage, 29.5% usage rate. Clearly going to look like a good option as well. Any of Avdia, Porzingis, Kuzma, Morris, Gafford are going to look good.
7,500 for Kuzma on FanDuel, projected for 35% ownership. I'm over that number right now. I think he looks fantastic there.
Should Kispert be getting more than no ownership? Actually, never mind. He's 4,500. I take it back.
Yeah. He's 3,900 on FanDuel, 5% owned. That's a little bit more interesting to me if you want to take that kind of flyer. I think there's going to be a lot of 0.7 fantasy point per minute guys that play 30 minutes that you can get to, but a matchup against Indiana certainly helps.
Do you think it matters if Will Barton is out?
For Kispert?
No, in general.
Not really.
I'll say I think it just, it solidifies Kispert and Avdia minutes. It reduces the likelihood of something stupid rotation-wise happening. I was kind of thinking like maybe you get more Jordan Goodwin, but he's already priced up too, so I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, I don't. There's probably not much of a trickle down there other than you feel way better about Denny and Kispert.
Yeah, that's how I would view it, is there's just one less piece that you're going to get the random game where it's like, oh, Will Barton finally made shots, so they threw him in.
Denny and Kispert aren't going to fail from a playing time perspective if Will Barton is out.
Right.
I just talked that one into existence.
Yeah, yep.
Indiana.
So Johnny Davis is already out. Devin Dotson's out.
They should cut Johnny Davis.
They should have never drafted Johnny Davis.
Well, that's that too, but might as well just free up that roster spot now.
I mean,
Indiana. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Like,
I know you need. If this
wasn't
your team, I wouldn't let you go. But go ahead.
I don't know anything about the guy. I just know as soon as the pick was made, everybody told me it was a horrible pick. But like, they're playing without DeLon Wright. They're playing without Bradley Beal. They're playing without all these dudes, and the first round pick is still in the G League. Like, they're not even letting him sit on the bench. Like, how bad is the guy?
Yeah, bad. Really, really, really bad. Jalen Smith is not on the injury report. Miles Turner, Isaiah Jackson, and James Johnson are all questionable. Everybody played on Wednesday except for Jalen Smith, and he is back. So I'm projecting Indiana at full strength. Not a lot of ownership coming in here. Buddy Hield and Halliburton are around 10%. Same situation on FanDuel. Nemhard and Mathurin are around 8 on FanDuel. I kind of like the Indiana side as like low-owned pivots for what we have, and it could certainly open up a little bit more. But if I'm going to have so much volume going to Washington, I'm pretty happy to like bring along some of these random Indiana guys for the ride.
Yeah, Indiana's kind of tough to talk about here because like I think there's a lot of good plays, but we've already talked about the Knicks, the Wizards, the Hornets, where it's like, oh, these guys look really good. So you're already getting to the point where, it's a 10-game slate, and you can't just say that every single player looks great and you should be jamming them in the lineups. But only 10% ownership coming into Halliburton at just $9,200. He played normal minutes in his first game back. Actually played more than normal minutes in his first game back, played 36 and a half. He's been, a 1.3 to 1.4 fantasy point per minute guy this year. There's a chance he's playing 36 minutes at relatively low ownership and a cheap price tag. I really like that. Miles Turner at 6,900 right now, pulling no ownership, probably because he's questionable. But if he's in, that's a 1.25 fantasy point per minute guy, likely to play 28 to 30 minutes at just below 7K. That's going to look really good. Buddy Hield's cheap enough where, you're just kind of playing the game of does he knock down his shots or not. But 6K playing probably 32 to 34 minutes, that's going to look good. Jalen Smith is what Jalen Smith always is. He's going to play somewhere between 18 and 30 minutes. He's going to get a fantasy point per minute probably. If you're interested in, oh, no, never mind. Games in Indiana. I take it back. Not a homecoming game. But yeah, like Indiana's really interesting to me at low ownership.
SMP hit you with the Johnny Davis had a 52% true shooting in 1,800 minutes at Wisconsin. Just a quick indicator of just how bad he is.
What made him go in the first round? Relatively early in the first round.
Incompetence by the Washington Wizards front office. That's not like where he should have been going. So like, it's not like, oh, anybody could have made this mistake. Like it seems to be a mistake that they made on purpose.
Is there like anything that he does well that?
I mean, it was universally panned, right?
Yeah, so I remember like
draft Knicks, Wizards fans, like everybody hit it negatively.
Yeah. I remember when it happened, me being like, all right, so who's this guy? And everybody being like, somebody that absolutely had no business going where you took him.
Yep. Let's see. I wonder if they have it here. Do they not have old ones? Instant analysis, NBA mock draft, or NBA draft.net, which has been around forever. Instant analysis on the Wizards pick. Davis comes to this draft from a time machine out of 1984. Mid-range assassin, works hard, shooting efficiency, leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, it could be a glue guy. I mean, they're being really nice. They also basically didn't give out shitty grades. Like they gave Shaedon Sharpe a C. They didn't give Johnny Davis a C or lower than that. But like, the upside on Shaedon Sharpe is a very different play than Johnny Davis.
I was going to say, like, Shaedon Sharpe is at least, like, crazy athletic and could end up being really good.
Yeah, like they gave Jake LaRavia a D+. That's the worst one I've seen so far. I'll defer to the Memphis ability to like bring people around.
And the fact that LaRavia is already playing a rotation role on the Grizzlies while Johnny Davis sits in the G League with half the Wizards team out.
Yeah. I mean, you heard the explanation. The things that I just described are not guys that get drafted 10th.
Yeah. I mean,
they get drafted 50th.
Right. The only saving grace for me is so far, none of the guys taken after him are just like immediate stars, although I'm sure there will be a few of them, but it's not.
Fantastic.
That was the other thing I hated about Avdija was Halliburton went like 3 picks after or whatever.
Yeah. I didn't have a huge issue there. I had Avdija ahead. Yeah, sure. I don't look at that as a mistake at that point.
Sure.
The Toronto Raptors are 7.5-point favorites in Orlando, 220 total. Now we can stop talking about just ridiculous stuff. For Toronto, it's the standard issue rotation. No Achua, no Porter, no Juancho Hernan-Gomez. We know what these starters do. We kind of know the Toronto rotation. Obviously, playing Orlando makes you feel good, but no one is getting 10% ownership on DraftKings or FanDuel. If you want to play VanVleet, Anunoby, Siakam, Barnes, by all means. I don't think there's a single priority for Toronto. This is just filler.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you. Siakam, 10K. I think 10K Siakam still looks good. He's been really popular. He's not getting ownership here. I think it's just because of how the slate breaks down. But like, this is somebody that was 30% owned on Wednesday at 9,800. Now he's 7% at 10K, still in a good spot against Orlando. So I like getting to Siakam where you can. I like getting to 7K VanVleet. I think that's, a little too cheap of a price tag. Anunoby and Barnes both look fine. All 4 of those guys look good to me. It's just I understand why the ownership is low. I think they're just like perfect guys for, okay, I have 6 guys from the teams we've talked about that look great. Now I'm going to throw in one of these guys because they're really good and they're not popular.
Yeah, I don't have anything else I could really add. And like talking about the Toronto guys that play 36 minutes a game is pretty easy. Did I paste that in incorrectly? Yeah, I had the Toronto line flipped. No, Toronto is not a 7.5-point dog. That one's on me. Don't blame Mike. That one's my fault. Toronto is a 7.5-point favorite, obviously. Dude, you would need so many dudes out for Toronto for Orlando to be a 7.5. Well, I mean, I don't even think that they could.
If that was the actual line, you would actually bet Orlando because it's so blatantly going to end up being an Orlando win, right?
You would think, yeah. That's my bad. I don't know how I did that one. Well, I mean, I know exactly how I did it. One of them has a plus sign. The other one has a minus sign. All I did was copy it. For the Orlando side of this one, still no Suggs, Carter, Harris, Isaac, or Chuma Okeke. We got Mo Bamba back for 17 minutes. They also ran very weird rotations for some of their bench guys. Markelle Fultz is 12% owned on DraftKings and 35% owned on FanDuel, where he's 4,600. Was looking like he was going to play the 30 minutes that we talked about. Got in some pretty heavy foul trouble in the second quarter. If I'm playing anybody from Orlando, it's Banchero, Wagner, or Fultz. Franz Wagner, that is. That said, I really think like Fultz is the only guy that I have real interest in. I'm happy to swap Banchero and Wagner in for like low-owned flyers. I just don't like a lot of Orlando today.
Yeah, I'm there with you mostly. Fultz, I like 4,800, looks good. Like you said, he got in foul trouble, lost like 7 minutes in the second quarter, got 5 of them back in overtime, but looked like he was going to play around 30 minutes. So I still like getting there. Different slates, maybe, Anthony at 5K playing 28 minutes. Banchero always is fine if you get there, but doesn't look like a priority just in the sense that you're going to play Kelly Oubre before him. You're going to play Terry Rozier before him. Wagner's price tag has come up. He is still kind of interesting in tournaments if he starts. Mo Wagner, that is. Because he does still have power forward eligibility on DraftKings at 5,700. Started ahead of Bamba, played 31 minutes in regulation. But I think Fultz is the easiest guy to get to. And then after that, it's just sort of both Wagners, assuming they start, and Banchero look fine, but not like priorities.
Okay. There's just to me, a pretty quick team to talk through. Yeah, Mo Wagner, 5,600 on FanDuel, power forward only.
Yeah, I think Banchero at 7,500 is like a very obvious, if he's going to pull 4% ownership and Kelly Oubre is going to pull, 20, Kelly Oubre is the better play in that he's going to project better and you should play more of him. But Banchero is like a perfect guy in an individual lineup to say like, okay, well here Kelly Oubre becomes Banchero.
Chandre thinks Fultz is trash, so I definitely feel a lot better about my Fultz ownership
No,
today.
He thinks Fulton is trash.
He corrected it to Fultz.
Oh, okay.
So I feel better about getting to Fultz today. Schedule for the rest of the day. We've got the NFL strategy show coming up after this, 11 a.m. That's going to be On the Contrary. Neil, Steve, Brick. Should be a good one. 2 p.m., we've got the NHL strategy show. 3 o'clock, we've got the the No House Advantage NFL show. At 3:30, we've got the No House Advantage NBA show. Adam and I will be back at 4:45 for the deeper dive. And then you get NBA Live before lock tonight from 6 to 7:30. That will be Eric Lindquist and Gundacker. So be ready for a full Friday of content at Stokastic.com. And we can move on now to a team that we have to talk about a little bit. The Atlanta Hawks are 7-point underdogs in Brooklyn, 228 total. Q-tag on DeAndre Hunter, working his way back. Collins, obviously, still out for a bit. DeJounte Murray now going to be out for probably 2 weeks. Unfortunately, injured his ankle. Trae Young has a bit of a usage rate when DeJounte has been off the floor so far. I don't think I'm going to project him for the 50% usage we have seen thus far, but we do have Trae Young out there, 10-3 on DK, 9,700 on FanDuel, pulling about 15 to 20% ownership depending on the site. I'm curious where you're going to end up going with the usage rate for Trae Young, because obviously he looks like a good pay-up option today.
Yeah, I mean, he looks great. Without Murray, just Murray on the floor this year, 44.5%. So if you go back to the start of last season, and this is probably what I'll end up doing. If you go back to the start of last season, like we know Murray wasn't here. And then if you also take John Collins off, which this is taking forever to load, I'll probably end up going with whatever that usage rate is.
Depends on what it is, I guess, right?
It is, the rate this is going on in 5 minutes.
So Giannis has the highest usage rate in the league right now at 39%.
36%.
Okay. I went to 38. I kind of just slotted them in as like, what are the highest usage rates that people have in the league right now? Giannis is 39, Embiid's 38, Luka's 37. Like, to me, that's sort of like the upper bound of what I want to do. I don't want to go, like, I'm never going to project 45 or any of that other nonsense that's showing up. At that point, like, I want to get a lot of Trae Young. Like, dude is going to do everything. And the more interesting piece is he's also going to have a massive assist rate.
Right. Yeah, that's, so 174 minutes this year without Murray and without Collins. Not only does he have a 47% usage rate, he's got a 50% assist percentage. So you have him just taking every single possession. And I probably will go a little bit higher than that 36 just because of what we've seen this year. But yeah, like I can't go 47. That's absurd.
I mean, I think projecting him like Luka, massive assist rate, massive usage rate. Like, I think that's where we're at for today.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to make him look really good. $10,300 price tag, pulling 13% ownership. Seems kind of low, but at the same time, it is a 10 gamer. He is a point guard. There's a ton of really good options there. We've already talked about just in that price range, different position, but Pascal Siakam getting half that ownership. So I get why it's not more ownership. You just have a lot of alternatives there. And, there's a lot of just really good players you can pay for in that range. But I certainly think Trae Young looks fantastic.
Yep, you and I are on the same page there. What else do we do for this team? I'm assuming DeAndre Hunter is in right now, at which point, like, he's sort of whatever. I don't think he's going to play a ton of minutes either way. I gave him 30, and he's like a totally reasonable guy on a 10-game slate. What else stands out? Because we've got Bogdanovic projected for 30-something% ownership. I gave him 26 minutes. I just don't know how they're going to unleash him. Played 25 on Wednesday. Clearly, the price tag works. Clearly, he could take whatever shots and facilitation that he wants since DeJounte Murray is gone. Is he the second best option for Atlanta?
I mean, I think everything considered, he's the best option.
More so than Trae.
He's just easier to get to. Like, I would expect to have, like, Trae Young is the best option in the sense of, like, who do I really want in my lineup from Atlanta? But in the sense of who am I most likely to have the most exposure to, I think it's Bogdanovic, just because he's only 4,100. He has shooting guard, small forward. Played 25 minutes last game, which I do think is a big deal because he had specifically said he was playing 22 to 23 minutes for a few games and then getting up to 26. Then he immediately played 25. So I feel, just better about giving him like 26 minutes here. Since the start of last season, he's played 1,158 minutes without John Collins on the floor, 1.04 DraftKings points per minute. Obviously, Young was out for some of that, so you expect the production to come down a little bit. But he's like his skill set is badly needed on this team right now. So I think he looks really good at that price tag. 651 minutes with Trey on and Collins off, 0.9 DraftKings points per minute. Like that's still looking pretty good at $4,100.
And then the other guy that I think is incredibly interesting for today, Clint Capella, 6,500 on DraftKings, 11% owned, 6,200 on FanDuel, 20% owned. Adam, do you know who the worst offensive rebounding team is in the league?
I want to say it's the Knicks or Nets, not Knicks, Nets.
You're right to go to the state of New York. It is the Brooklyn Nets. Do you know who the worst defensive rebounding team is in the league?
I'm still going to go with the Nets.
Dead last in both. They're 1.7% below the 29th team in offensive rebounding rate. They're still another 0.5 percentage below the 29th team in defensive rebounding rate. Clint Capella might have a really staggering rebounding day today.
Yeah, and that price tag looks really good. Like you could tell me he's playing any team in the league, and at 6,500, I'm going to be like, yeah, cool. I like getting to Clint Capella because he's like a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy playing 30 minutes. Now you get this matchup against Brooklyn where, and I think I would have known that answer even if it wasn't blatantly obvious because just watching Brooklyn games, they harp on it so much. Like this team cannot rebound. And it just sets up as a fantastic spot for Clint Capella.
Yes, it does. And you assume like more pick and roll stuff with Trey. So like maybe even more involved in the offense as well. So
yeah, that is something that, and it kind of had corrected itself as the year went on. Like, but at the beginning of the year, remember we saw Capella's production down because his usage, he's never a high usage guy, but his usage went from like 16, 17% down to like 12. And it was because a lot of those possessions that were ending with Young throwing a lob to Capella were now ending with DeJounte Murray having the ball. So I do think that it's a potential benefit for him. Actually, I guess I could look. It's going to take a second, but with Young and Murray on the floor this year together, Capella has averaged 1.1 DraftKings points per minute with a 15.5% usage rate. With Young on and Murray off, Capella has averaged 1.32 DraftKings points per minute with an 18.2% usage rate.
Yeah, love Clint Capella today.
Also, 26.6% rebounding percentage with Young on and Murray off compared to 21.6 when they are both on. Normally, that's not something you would look at when you're taking off a guard, but when that guard is DeJounte Murray, that is something to pay attention to.
Yes, it is. So if Hunter is in, I'm assuming we're going to probably get like, it could be Bogdanovich, but probably AJ Griffin and Jalen Johnson rounding out the rest of this. Do you have any interest in the rest of the Hawks today, or do we need to wait on the Hunter news too?
I mean, I think we need to wait on the Hunter news. Right now, it looks like we have him projected out. And so we're getting, 11% ownership coming to Jalen Johnson at 3,800. That would make a lot of sense. If Hunter is back, then it becomes really risky because, you still have Trae Young in. So Jalen Johnson's per minute rates are going to suck. You'd be kicking most likely AJ Griffin back to the bench, but that's, another body in the rotation to take minutes away from Jalen Johnson potentially. So if Hunter is back, Johnson becomes riskier. If Hunter is out, Johnson's still risky, but he's still, $3,800. So he's going to look pretty decent.
Anything else you want to touch on from the Hawks?
I guess the obligatory, if Clint Capella gets in foul trouble, Nneka Okongwu is going to crush 3,800.
Yeah, everything we said about Capella is true for Okongwu if he can play those minutes.
Right. But on this slate, you shouldn't be going in being like, oh, yeah, I can't wait to play the backup center on the Hawks and hope something happens to Clint Capella.
Yes. Cloud LLC hit us with a super chat before. He said, don't chat very much, but thanks for what you guys do, especially the process. Spreadsheets have helped me ship a few single entries this year.
Nice.
That's what I'd like to see, man. Congratulations. Love putting some winners up on the board. Then we go to the Brooklyn side where Ben Simmons is back. What'd you say?
Nothing.
What'd you say?
I said you can't do it yourself. So
that stings. On the Brooklyn side, we get Ben Simmons back. My assumption is that he's just back and goes right back into that role of playing alongside Nick Claxton to start, and Joe Harris gets the boot again, is my guess. Don't really know for sure. There's no ownership coming into this Brooklyn side. Tough for me to really be excited about Brooklyn, but I will still happily get some shares of Durant and Irving. I think Nick Claxton still looks like a solid enough center option. I just happen to like Capella more on the opposite side, but there's no priorities from Brooklyn, but I still think they're a little interesting.
Yeah, I think they're just another one of those teams where they don't stand out like some of the other teams we've talked about so far, but Kevin Durant's price keeps falling. You do have Simmons back, so that's not a bump there. Kyrie at 8,600. Again, Simmons being back makes me like Kyrie a little bit less than I would if he were out, but you're still getting 38 minutes from Kyrie, who's really, really, really good, and $8,600 and not popular. So, those both are interesting. 6,200 for Claxton. I am concerned about his minutes with Simmons back, but before Simmons went out, you were still getting just a lot of Simmons and Claxton next to each other, and Claxton playing 30-ish minutes. So, still a path to success for him. Simmons at 6,700 could certainly do well. This is just another team where I don't think there's one guy you should be playing a lot of, but I think of all 5 of the starters, they're just good guys to be mixing into lineups as like, all right, well, this guy's still really good and just not going to be popular. And also to touch on something in chat, somebody said no Bogdan. Yeah, no, definitely Bogdan. We talked about that. Looks really good.
Yeah. I don't have anything else really to add for Brooklyn. It's just a tough team to talk about. And clearly no one needs an explanation on why to play Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's kind of a boring team to talk about outside of, what's going to happen with Claxton and Simmons. But I don't have anything to go on right now other than prior to Simmons' absence, they had gone back to just playing them next to each other. I assume that's what's going to happen here.
Likewise. Sacramento Kings are 5.5-point dogs in Cleveland, 225 total. A lot of trickle-down effects for this one, so it's hard to really dig in. De'Aaron Fox is questionable. Terrence Davis is questionable. If De'Aaron Fox happens to be out, it will open up a lot more interesting things for Sacramento. But for now, a matchup against Cleveland doesn't look very good. There's single-digit ownership coming across the board for Sacramento. I don't see anything that I would say that I'm interested in from the Kings, barring the Fox news.
Yeah, I would say that De'Aaron Fox getting sub 1% ownership at 8K ever is very interesting. But we've already talked about a million guards. It's a tough matchup against Cleveland. You have Jared Allen back to anchor that defense. I understand why De'Aaron Fox isn't getting ownership. It's just another example of if you want to play 1% De'Aaron Fox and hope this is the game he goes for 60, he's going to do it from time to time. But outside of that, and you can say the same thing about Sabonis. Nothing from this team looks very interesting right now. If Fox were to be out, then you should get a lot more playing time for a $3,200 Davion Mitchell. $5,400 Malik Monk will start to look better. Sabonis will have the entire offense run through him. So the whole team would start to look better if Fox is out.
Yeah. And if Fox is in, I don't he's not getting ownership either way. That's going to be a 3%, 4% guy to begin with. It's not if we're projecting him as out and he's not getting anything. There's not any ownership coming to Sacramento one way or the other. And I do agree that he's an interesting GPP play. The Cleveland side of this one is equally as interesting. Got a couple pieces of information here. Q tag on Donovan Mitchell, right lower leg soreness. No Dean Wade, no Kevin Love. So we have those two pieces. Darius Garland currently projected for 20% ownership across both sites, 8,200 and 8,300. I assume Mitchell's in. I think he's still very interesting at 8,700. Jared Allen, 6,600 on DK, 6,900 on FanDuel with the power forward eligibility. Came right back from a back injury to play 38.5 minutes, which is what everybody expected.
Yeah.
I'm happy to get to Garland, to Mitchell, to Allen. I think those 3 guys look pretty good, assuming Mitchell is in, that is. If Mitchell is out, I like those guys even more, and then there's even more to like for Cleveland because they get to play the Kings.
Yeah, another team that's just going to look good. $6,600 on Jared Allen looks fantastic. This is going to be a fun slate. It's also going to be a frustrating one because there's just so many guys I really want to play a lot of. 6,600 is just a really dumb price tag here. He's averaging 33 to 34 minutes in the games he's played with Kevin Love this year, which basically means the games where he hasn't been limited. But like you said, he played 38 minutes in the last game, his first game back. Very comfortable going to 33, 34 minutes here. He should have a great game. Darius Garland at 8,200, pulling 20% ownership. Looks very, very good. Mitchell right now only projected for 5%, I assume because of the Q tag. There should not be a 4-to-1 gap between him and Garland. I don't think there actually will be. But yeah, both of those guys are going to look good. So Garland, Mitchell, Allen, the guys I really want to get to here. Evan Mobley clearly is always fine, but he does take a hit with Jared Allen being back.
Just a very interesting team that we need to pay attention to because the Mitchell trickle-down effect will be big. But even if he's in, there's a lot to like here for Cleveland. Anything else for this game?
No.
Time to talk a little bit about PrizePicks, presenting sponsor of this show. If you click the link in the description, head on over to PrizePicks and make a deposit. You will get up to $100 on that first deposit. You're picking player props here. My recommendation, put together 5 on one parlay card. That's what we're going to call them right now, parlay cards. And you can net up to 10x your entry fee if you get them all right. And you can mix sports here. They've got NBA, NHL, NFL, college basketball, soccer, golf, Euro basketball, tennis, MMA, Call of Duty. You can go many different directions here at PrizePicks to put together those player props if you want. I'm going to hit Adam with a couple fantasy score options. They do have the fantasy scores up for us today. Sometimes we don't get to see that. Normally we're just looking at points props, but I'm going to go ahead and give Adam the fantasy scores. By the way, this is FanDuel scoring. So 3 points for blocks, 3 points for steals. You lose a full point for turnovers. Let's start with someone that I think is very interesting for today, pulling a lot of ownership. Kelly Oubre over under 35.5.
Way over.
Yep. I got him at 40.2. I would go out of my way to get that right now.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more in this game. How about Terry Rozier, 37.5?
Over.
I agree.
With less enthusiasm, but still over.
Yes. How about, let's go to a different game now. Oh, there's not too many more to choose from yet. Markelle Fultz, over under 23.5.
Slight over. Actually, over. We have him at 24. We also have him at 24 minutes. So
that is not the correct minutes projection for Markelle Fultz. We're going to put that out there right now. Hopefully that gets bumped up a bit. Yeah, I have him at 26.5. So that's in 30 minutes. Give me some over on Markelle Fultz. Obviously, we sound like we're very interested in all of the overs, but that's because we are very interested in all of the overs. Here's one that I think could be an under for me. Bowl, final one. Over under 27.5.
Yeah, under. We have him at 27 minutes, just shy of 26 fantasy points.
Same. 25.5 fantasy points for me in 27 minutes. And as Bombo can play a couple more minutes, you kind of think Bowl could play less than. It's not going to be good for him at the very least.
Yeah.
That's PrizePicks, everybody. Link in the description. Again, up to $100 on your first deposit. The Los Angeles Lakers get to play on this slate, and no one should care. They're 3-point underdogs in Philly, 224 total. LeBron back, probable. AD back, probable. Beverly off the injury report. Wenyen Gabriel still out. Highest owned guy in this game is 4% owned AD on DraftKings at 11-1. If you find yourself getting to an Anthony Davis lineup, by all means. I guess I could say the same thing about LeBron, although I actually literally do think he does not look good today. I would be shocked if I have a Laker in a lineup today.
Yeah, I'd be pretty surprised. It's like you said, if you get to Davis or LeBron, sure, it's Anthony Davis and LeBron, but I just don't I don't see LeBron as particularly comparable to Trae Young amongst others. I would rather play Siakam than LeBron. Davis, you could make the case that he has been playing out of his mind lately, but he is also center only. We've already talked about Jared Allen. We've talked about Clint Capella. Plumlee looks good. There's Porzingis or Gafford. One of them is going to look good. There's just so many centers that it's tough to want to pay up there. Preemptive congratulations to whoever looks at Thomas Bryant's box score, clicks him in for 5K, and then gets like 40 minutes of garbage time or something. But yeah, I have nothing from the Lakers. Yeah,
they're probably the worst team on the slate.
It's about time we had a team that was actively bad, though.
Yep, I agree. I knew that we had a lot of time that we were going to make up as we moved our way through this show. On the Philly side, it's not all that different. Highest owned guy on the Philly side is going to be Joel Embiid at 7%. Harden is now back, played 38 minutes in a double OT game, so at least he can play 38 minutes. That's not what I'm going with. Melton is off the injury report. We are without George Niang, and there is a Q tag on Daniel House. So there's a possibility that value gets found here. But the only guy in double digits in ownership is DeAnthony Melton on FanDuel at 5,900. Makes sense, I guess. As always, if you want to get to Joel Embiid, he is in the same sort of boat as Anthony Davis. Harden for 8,900 is interesting, depending on how many minutes you want to give him. But again, I don't see anything as like a priority for Philly.
No, neither do I. Embiid, you run into the same issues with the position as we were just talking about with Davis. Clearly, if you can get to him, great. But you do have Harden back, which is a minor downgrade for Embiid. The biggest issue, though, is just I have trouble allocating $11,500 to the center position when I can pay basically half of that for guys that look very, very good. Harden at 8,900. I mean, that's a good price tag. He did play 40 minutes total in the last game, 38 and a half minutes total. That's good to see. They limited him obviously in regulation, but the fact that he physically played 38 minutes, your body doesn't care. That it's not like you can be like, oh, well, it's overtime. These minutes don't count. Like he still did it. So I think there's a good chance he plays a lot of minutes here. It makes him kind of interesting at 8,900, but nothing that really stands out to me here either. I think Harden would be the guy that I am most likely to get to.
We are on the exact same page here. I have nothing else to add. I mean, Melton's $5,900 price tag on FanDuel works for me. Like he's starting, going to play 30. I would imagine play a little over 30 minutes. Good enough point per minute guy. Like he's just a guy though today for me. The Detroit Pistons are 10-point underdogs in Memphis, 227 total. God, this team is disgusting. They are just ass across the board. No Cade. Isaiah Livers still out. I mean, they just play like everybody 20. I feel like everybody plays like 25 minutes a game. The highest owned guy on DraftKings is Beef Stew at 3%. On FanDuel, it's Alec Burks at 2.9, which I don't even understand. I will not have a single Piston today.
If I play anybody, I would expect it to be either Bogdanovich or Stewart. Bogdanovich was ejected last game, so don't read into his 20 minutes. He's been really good without Cade. He's only 6,100 on DraftKings, so that's a nice price drop. All of that being said, there's so many good plays on this slate. I really don't want to talk about the Pistons.
No, I do not either. Yeah, like if I got a share or two of Boyan at 5,700 on FanDuel, by all means, like he's like everything's right for that, but we've named like 60 plays already through the first 6 games that are better than this.
Yep. And then we get the other side of this game.
The Memphis Grizzlies, big favorites in this one. Q tag on Steven Adams, which is important, unfortunately. I don't want it to be. I'd rather this just be cut and dry. Bane's still out. LaRavia doubtful. We have Zaire Williams back now, played 19 minutes in his return. No one in double digits in ownership on the Memphis side. Oh, sorry, that's not true. Brandon Clark is 10% owned. Obviously, that's going to be quite dependent, I would imagine, on Steven Adams' status, and it's going to go a lot higher than 10% if Adams happens to be out. Dylan Brooks is 17% owned on FanDuel at 6,300. The guy that I want the most here is Ja Morant, 10,600 on both sites. Not really pulling all that much ownership. Happy to take the shot on him against Detroit, but the Adams news is the big piece. Like, if he's in, then some of these starters look fine for Memphis. It's clearly a great spot. I wouldn't say that anybody is an aggressive priority. If Adams ends up out, Brandon Clark is one of the highest owned guys on the slate.
Yeah, if Adams is in, Ja Morant's my favorite option here. He's a perfect example of why it was so difficult to talk about Trae Young. Like, you really like Trae Young, but I don't want to just jam in Trae Young and not play Ja Morant, because Ja Morant's in basically the same position, playing without Desmond Bane. In the games that Morant has played with Jackson and without Bane this year, 35.5% usage rate, 42% assist percentage, 33.5 minutes per game, 1.6 DraftKings points per minute. Like, he's already doing basically what you're hoping Trae Young does without DeJounte Murray. So I think that he looks really good as well. The ownership on Brandon Clark, assuming Adams is in, is interesting because he's 3,900. He's a good point per minute guy. He's likely to play around 20 minutes, assuming the game goes normal. But if Adams gets in foul trouble, the game blows out, whatever, and Clark gets to 24 minutes, he's going to look really good. So I get why he's getting some ownership anyway. It is the type of play where as guys get ruled out later in the day, he probably starts to disappear. But if one of those guys that gets ruled out is Steven Adams, Brandon Clark becomes one of the easiest plays on the slate. Unlike the last time that everybody decided to play Brandon Clark, Steven Adams is what matters. Brandon Clark does not play alongside Steven Adams. So you can rule out Jaren Jackson. Doesn't matter because he's not playing those minutes. Rule out Steven Adams. Brandon Clark is going to start, and Brandon Clark is going to play a lot of minutes and score a fantasy point per minute and be probably the best value on the slate and probably in all of my lineups if Steven Adams is out.
I have nothing else to add to anything that you just said there. Brandon Clark, 4,600 on FanDuel, so he does not become the windmill slam dunk play on as he would be on DraftKings at 3,900, but still one of the best plays on the board if Steven Adams gets
and to answer Blitz's question, no, Steven Adams doesn't affect Brandon Clark's usage. And in general, when just thinking about these things, if you don't play on the floor with somebody, they don't affect your usage because you're not playing with them. If anything, his usage would go down because he's playing more minutes with Ja Morant. But he just becomes a fantastic play in general because his minutes go from 20 to 30.
I have nothing else to add here for Memphis. Obviously, if you get shares of Jaren Jackson, no matter what we're talking about, or Brooks, all that's fine. These guys aren't priorities. Let's talk about BetMGM. They are running a deal right now that you guys shouldn't pass up if you have the ability to bet in a legal betting state. So if you haven't signed up yet at BetMGM, please click the link in the description of this video. Head on over and make a deposit. It's got to be at least $10. But my recommendation is to try to scrape together every cent you can to get it into BetMGM, because your first bet is a $1,000 risk-free bet. I would probably put it on like a plus 150, plus 200 dog, really try to roll myself up a pretty big bankroll, because the worst case scenario there is that you are going to lose that bet and they're going to give you that same bet in free bets moving forward. You just get it right back in site credit. So take the shot. If it wins, you just keep everything in that account and you go about your day. But it's not even just that. God, that picture of Eric is so bad. It's not even just that free bet. You can also get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. And if you're watching this show, I assume that's what you're looking for. So all of that as a package, you're not going to find a better deal to sign up for a sportsbook anywhere else. You should take advantage of that before it goes away. Also, for the 500 people that are in here, please hit that like button. We need to cruise up over 100. If we can get to 150 likes quickly, I think that would be awesome. The next game is the Phoenix Suns, 2-point favorites in New Orleans, 227 total. We got Chris Paul back in the most recent game, played 24 minutes. Still no Cam Johnson, no Dwayne Washington. DeAndre Ayton's 12% owned. I think that's fine. Mikal Bridges is pulling some ownership on FanDuel at $6K. Shooting guard, small forward, plays like 36 minutes a game. I have a hard time prioritizing anything from Phoenix.
Yeah, same. Ayton looks the best, but because I think 7K is a little bit cheap, but you can just throw him into that bucket with Jared Allen and Clint Capella as guys that are pretty clearly too cheap. Devin Booker's price tag has already started to come down. He's at 9,500, but still playing with Chris Paul. So the Booker play is simply just hopefully Devin Booker gets hot today, which is fine, but he's not that far off in terms of salary from guys like Trae Young or Siakam or Morant that just are going to project a lot better, which is going to make it tough to get there. Yeah, I don't have much.
Tough. It's just a tough spot to want to prioritize anything. These guys are sort of priced appropriately, and integrating Chris Paul isn't going to help matters.
Right. Yeah, and so Paul's kind of interesting. He played 24 minutes last game. That game was a massive blowout loss to the Celtics. They had said he was going to be limited, but he did play 17 minutes in the first half. They were not playing it as if he were going to be limited. So that is mildly interesting because he's only 6,600. If you guaranteed me Chris Paul played 34 minutes today at 1% ownership, I would think he was a great tournament play. Yeah. Obviously, you can't guarantee 34 minutes, but that does sort of make it interesting. But again, there's just so many good plays. I think it's more likely that I end up not really playing him, and then he plays 34 minutes, and I just end up being mad.
On the Pelicans side, no Brandon Ingram, no Herb Jones. Q tag on Jose Alvarado. Single-digit ownership across the board for the Pelicans on DraftKings. Joe Val at 5,700 gets to a little over 10% on FanDuel. I have a quick question for you. Do you know what CJ McCollum's true shooting is this year?
I want to say very not good based on how much he has hurt me.
48%. He is shooting 47% at the rim. That is a 4th percentile outcome. He's shooting 33% from 3. They gave him an extension, and he already had 2 years left on this deal. That is an albatross contract right now.
Now he is playing like you and I expected him to play when they made the trade, and we didn't know what they were doing. But then he came over and was just amazing, and it was like, all right, I was wrong on that one.
I mean, I don't get it. Why are they giving all of this money to a guy that, let's be clear here, has never been an all-star? That's a pretty firm line in the sand to draw if you want to tack 2 more years on. Yikes to the Pels on that one. That said, no Brandon Ingram, no Herb Jones. I kind of like some of these guys as GPP plays. There are no priorities here for me.
Yeah, that's how I see it too. McCollum, even with the poor shooting, 15 games without Ingram and with Zion this year, 1 fantasy point per minute, 34 minutes per game, 23.5% usage rate. If he's knocking down shots, you would expect that to come up. Zion, 1.32 DraftKings points per minute, 32 minutes per game, 9,600. I like getting there if you can, but same sort of thing where I can't just play all of the guys in that price range that I really like. Valanciunas is interesting, only 6K, probably playing 25, 26 minutes, good point per minute guy. but also doesn't do anything to differentiate himself from your Jared Allen or Clint Capella type guys. 19 games without Brandon Ingram and with Zion. Actually, let me add McCollum this season. 15 games with McCollum and Zion, no Ingram. 1.3 DraftKings points per minute for Joval, 23.5 minutes per game. I mean, he's getting to a price point where we can stop saying, oh, but Larry Nance, takes minutes, because he is now priced for Larry Nance to take those minutes. And Joval is a very good point per minute guy.
Did you see their game on Wednesday?
Did I see
Joval, 28.5 minutes. Larry Nance, 28.5 minutes.
Oh,
they played
that's
57 total minutes.
Yes. I had not seen that. I mean, that was against the Pistons, where you have Stewart and Bagley.
I don't think they're game planning for Marvin Bagley.
No, but like,
sure,
it's more. Are you going to do that against smaller teams?
I mean, we have now we have Ayton and Saric.
What?
I mean, Dario Saric is playing again, right?
No, he's not.
He played 12 minutes. Oh yeah, that was an ass beating, right?
Yeah, he played the fourth quarter. Yeah.
Torrey Craig's back. I forgot. I forgot Torrey Craig was back.
Yeah, you're good. Say it's Torrey Craig, but like they can if they want to. There's no reason they can't.
I gave them a couple.
Like, I'm gonna go 20. I'll probably go 26 minutes on Joval, which is gonna make him look good. But there's also that path where he could play more.
I gave him 26. I gave Nance 25 just to like open up that possibility. But when I saw that, I was like, "Ooh, okay, what are we doing here?"
And I mean, it makes sense too. If it makes more sense, with Herb Jones out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if Alvarado ends up out, it makes Dyson Daniels look a little bit more interesting. Those minutes are pretty firm at that point. Najee Marshall then probably becomes a little interesting as a value option, but still, nothing crazy.
Yeah, I kind of like Joval here. Again, everything's relative, because I also really like Capella and I really like Allen in this price range. But yeah, I think the big takeaway for me, one, Joval is just a solid play today, but it's just a reminder that like DFS is purely a game of salary and ownership. When Joval's 7K, 7,500, it matters that Larry Nance is closing over him a lot. When he is 6K, it does not matter nearly as much.
Correct. The Minnesota Timberwolves are 3-point dogs in Utah, 236 total. No Karl Anthony Towns, no Taurean Prince. And it's kind of just like everybody's the same. Russell's 10% owned. Gobert's 10% owned. Jaden McDaniels is 10% owned. Jalen Noel's 10% owned. That's sort of how I feel about these guys. I'd like to work my way into most of Minnesota just because they get to play Utah, and this game environment is incredible. Do you have priorities for Minnesota, or are you seeing it the same way?
Yeah, I just see it as everybody looks good. It's another team where I just want to play them all. Gobert, 7,200, finally had a big game. We talked about his numbers being really bad without Karl Anthony Towns, but also there being no real obvious reason for it. So it was likely it was going to turn around. I expect him to just overall be a good fantasy player going forward, play a lot of minutes when he can avoid foul trouble. So I think he looks good, but again, there's a lot of good centers today. A lot of them are cheaper than him too. Russell at 7,100, I like. Anthony Edwards getting 4% ownership is really interesting. He's a 1.25 fantasy point per minute guy without Karl Anthony Towns. He's shooting guard, small forward eligible at 9K on DraftKings. I like that play in tournaments. But yeah, this is just another team that I think across the board looks good. We did get Kyle Anderson back in the starting lineup last game. Then he did, I think, get banged up and maybe lose a few minutes.
Yeah, he only played 22 minutes.
Yeah.
On the Utah side, Mike Conley is questionable once again. Lauri Markkanen, who ended up getting ruled out on Wednesday, is questionable. And now Colin Sexton out for the next couple of games. These guys are all basically 5% owned, except for Clarkson at 10%. Clarkson, if he's able to play and not be suspended for today, is 27% owned on FanDuel at 6,600. No matter how these injury things break, I like Clarkson a little bit at 6,600, but hard to really dig into Utah yet. That said, they should look like pretty good, even if everybody's in.
Yeah, Conley, for what it's worth, they said yesterday expected to play, but like you said, still listed as questionable. At 5,500, I doubt I really need to get there on this slate, but it's a perfectly fine price tag. We had kind of talked about this the other day when he was questionable. I still like Lauri Markkanen. I still like Kelly Olynyk because I think those guys continue to play big minutes. Markkanen obviously questionable here, but we saw his increase in playing time coincide with Conley's injury, but I don't think they actually had anything to do with each other. I think, it would be weird if we're like, oh, especially with Sexton out now too, but it would be weird to be like, oh, Conley's back, so we're going to pull Markkanen's minutes back in. Like, I don't think that's how this is going to work. So I still do have interest in Markkanen. Clarkson, I would say Clarkson would lose a couple minutes, but Sexton's out, so he probably doesn't. And like you said, as long as he's not suspended, which I'm guessing he won't be. He didn't really do anything, but he wanted to, but he didn't. So 7,300, he's going to look okay. Who do you think starts at center?
I mean, assuming we're not calling Kelly Olynyk the center, that's where we're going with this. So, Jared, assuming everybody's in, Jared Vanderbilt.
I think it's Kessler.
I don't know. I mean, Kessler's 5,300 on FanDuel, so I don't give a shit.
Yeah, he's 4,200 on DraftKings. So
yeah, that matters.
I think it's Kessler. I
can see it.
They said they were going with him to combat Kevon Looney last game. To me, that sounds like an excuse to get Kessler into the starting lineup. Like, if
you're willing to do that for Looney, you should probably do that for Rudy Gobert.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're doing it for Looney, you're doing it for like 80% of the league. So, and then they won the game too. Like, Kessler played really well. They won the game on, I don't know if you saw the end of that. Just, it was Golden State blowing that game was almost as bad as Oakland or Vegas yesterday. But
yeah, are they just splitting the minutes?
What'd you say?
Are they just going to be 24-24 Vanderbilt Kessler?
I think it's probably, I'll probably go like 25-23, 26-22.
Okay.
I mean, because Kessler's played well also when he's played this year. Like, I could see them just wanting to get him more minutes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think they're big fans. His defense is real.
Yeah.
Like, that is what he is supposed to be. So if you're trying to make a team that has ass level defense across the board be a little bit better, starting Walker Kessler is not the worst idea in the world.
Yeah. So, like,
do you see his block rate?
What'd you say?
His block rate this season, 99th percentile, 9%.
Yeah, I knew it was absurd. I didn't know what the numbers were. Per 100 possessions, he is blocking 5.5 shots.
Yeah.
Pretty good for fantasy. But yeah, as far as the minutes go, I think it's kind of interesting because it ended up being a basically perfect 24-24 split last game, minus like 10 seconds of garbage time. But Kessler picked up his third foul with 4 minutes and 50 seconds to go in the second quarter. He was obviously on the floor. I don't know if they were going to just like play him another minute or two and then bring Vanderbilt back in anyway. But if you just assumed that he was going to close that quarter, you were actually looking at like a 28-20 split in Kessler's favor. So that's why I think I kind of want to give the slight edge to Kessler. Again, and if he comes off the bench, this is totally moot. But yeah. I think he's going to start. I am going to project it that way. If I have to swap it around, then so be it. But I like Kessler if he's starting.
Put it this way. I have Walker Kessler in for 21 minutes right now and the best point per dollar play on the Jazz.
Yeah, I think makes sense. Like, he's, for the season, 1.1 DraftKings points per minute on DraftKings, 1.19 on FanDuel because of the blocks.
Yeah. So I give him a couple more minutes and we're talking about a really good value play. We're taking it right up against the end here. We got to get out of here for the NFL strategy show on the contrary edition, but this one's pretty easy. The Milwaukee Bucks are 1-point favorites in Dallas. It's a 223 total. Milwaukee is essentially healthy. No Ingles, no Wes Matthews. Chris Middleton's back around 30 minutes. This is the worst matchup in the league. Dallas is exceptionally slow. If you want to play Drew Holiday or Giannis, by all means. The highest owned guy in this game is 4% owned Pat Connaughton at 3,200. I will likely not have anything from Milwaukee unless I get a share of Giannis.
Yeah, I probably won't have much of anything outside of some Drew. I just continue to like him at that price tag, but don't like this matchup.
No. And then on the Dallas side, it's basically the same story. Luka's 13K on DK. The highest owned DraftKings guy is Tim Hardaway at 4. Luka's 11.8 on FanDuel and 15% owned. That is the correct, that is a price tag where you're getting to Luka. He looks good as a pay up option. I do not want anything else on FanDuel from the Dallas side. This is a fantastic basketball game to want to watch at 10 o'clock tonight. It has very little bearing in DFS to me.
Yeah, and especially on DraftKings. As much as I love Luka, we've liked so many mid-range plays that we think are underpriced today, and we haven't had much, this guy is 3,500 and he's a free square.
Yeah,
I don't know how I'm getting to 13K Luka. Like, if Steven Adams gets ruled out, you get $3,900 Clark. But like, the issue there is still, I'm not going to Clark and then bumping, these 8K guys that I really like up to Luka. I'm just getting more of the mid-range and upper mid-range guys I like. So I would much rather just be living in the Ja Morant, Trae Young, Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton range as my top end, as opposed to allocating a quarter of my salary to Luka.
There it is. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for the strategy show. On the contrary, coming up next, go check it out. Hit the like button here. Adam and I will be back at 4:45 for the NBA Deeper Dive. It's going to be a good one, folks. I hope you enjoy it. Good luck tonight. We'll talk to you later.